maybe it's just me that I'm tuned towards this, or that I'm geared towards this. But more and more people are finding me with the very deep desire to find their right partner, the one that really completes them. And we have a massive campaign against it, that you are whole and complete. Nobody else should complete you. Yes and no, same way. You are a whole and complete being. And at the same time, when you merge with another whole and complete being, you are creating something that none of you individually would be capable of. And when you do genuinely unify the two of you, none of you is annihilated. You create a third form of consciousness, a third entity that is experiencing itself through both of you at the same time. When you know that you are an eternal being, when you are not afraid that you're going to die, then you don't need to survive. You just exist. It's easy. It's very, very simple. And it feels incredibly relaxed. Instead of dopamine agitated, it feels oxytocin open. It's a very different feeling. And I've experimented enough with my brain chemicals that I can tell the difference between serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine. I can tell the difference how it feels. I experience serotonin is not that uncommon, but I experience oxytocin pretty rarely. The most joy, the most excitement, the most fun that I have is dopamine highs. And I'm having the sense that that is not natural. I'm gonna find either the proof or disproof for it, but for now, my intuitive sense is telling me that when I hype myself with dopamine, then I'm holding myself back from experiencing at-one-ment and true fulfillment. I'm settling for junk food instead of nutrition. I'm actually closing myself off instead of allowing love, allowing to be loved and expressing love. And it has a very tangible, biophysical, chemical expression. It's just a few little atoms different, but it makes a massive difference in my experience, my level of consciousness, my attachment style. We're going to talk about attachment styles in the next one. So, what I've given myself as a challenge is to practice how it feels when I actually express love, the way I love. For me, it's not that different from desire. And probably that's been one of the trickiest parts, is that I've been holding myself back from expressing love because for me it's so closely linked with desire. And I'm only going to express that depth to one person because it only belongs to one person. Doesn't mean that I don't love multiple beings. Doesn't mean that I haven't expressed love towards my past relationships. But if I really ask myself, have I actually enjoyed it? Have I actually felt safe, loved, respected? Have I actually felt comfortable to be naked, not just physically, sometimes physically as well? It was like, oof, I don't know, we're gonna be naked in front of you. And I if I really ask myself, I'm not attracted to your naked body. I had so many of those. I literally forced myself into situations when I'm like, but he's such a nice guy, but I'm so unattracted to him. And I'm not saying that I regret those situations, but I have some cellular memory that I wish to clear about it. And so if I really honestly ask myself, I was full of those experiences when I wasn't actually honest, and I had a complete discongruent experience, a cacophonic experience. My body was saying one thing, and my mind, I should be doing this way. My body was saying one thing, and my mind was saying something else. My mind justified it that pain is actually good for you, or that you are stronger if you surpass this pain, or if you go beyond this pain, or somehow it's a virtue or a value if you just feel the fear and do it anyway. And from the bottom of my heart, you really don't have to. When you're coming from passion instead of urges, when you're coming from openness and the innocent desire to become one, then when you do experience merger, it's such an incredibly relaxing, opening, and at the same time ecstatic experience that when you do have that experience, it doesn't compare with a release, with literally a quick release. That's the difference between orgasms and orgasms, but we're going to talk about that later. Delta frequencies are sleep states. Your body is put to complete peace. Theta is light sleep, deep meditation, or a very peaced out state. Alpha is light meditation, relaxation, the flow state, the creative flow. Beta is alertness. High beta is anxiety and fear. And gamma is ecstasy. When you've never experienced ecstasy, and that's not the drug, trust me, it's not the drug. When you've never experienced at one moment, but you've only experienced this chemical annihilation of the ego, this electric shock, that quite literally your system is jolted through pain so that it gets to have this release. That's not ecstasy. Ecstasy is this soft, it's like walking on clouds feeling when there's no muscle contraction, no pain, none whatsoever, no fear, none of that. It's just a gentle, I want to use the word permanent because it feels like it's a permanently static state. And at the same time, it's the most elevated and excited state that you've ever experienced. Fear doesn't have that static peace. It only has agitation at such high frequencies, at such high levels that when you release that high frequency, it's a finally feeling instead of a melting into a peaceful, harmonious, ecstatic state. When you come together in that relationship, not necessarily children, but when you come together in that relationship, the relationship itself exists as a separate entity. You might have recognized that you might be completely different with different people. You might act completely differently with different people. You're a different version of yourself. You're a different sense of self. When you meet that person who is the closest to you, you are expressing yourself in a way that you don't express with anybody else. It's not just a relationship. You are showing something to that person that you don't show to anyone else. Mostly because there's so much certainty in a relationship like that. There's absolutely no question whether you love, respect, and trust each other. There is utmost trust, utmost respect, and pure, such joy-based, freedom-based, unadulterated love between the two of you that games, drama, jealousy, inconsistencies, and some days I do love you, some days I don't love you, they just completely go away. You don't need to be validated that the person still loves you. You don't need to force it out of them that they should comply. You live in co-resonant harmony. You communicate with each other on more than one levels, not just on a physical, not just on an emotional, not just on a mental level. You also can feel how the other person is feeling. It's not that you are becoming the same person. You still retain your individuality, and at the same time, you make space for your partner. You are expanding your sense of self, your territory, your energy field to include another being as well. It's quite literally an expansion of consciousness, because your consciousness is not just your mental consciousness, it's also your bodily consciousness. When that person on the other side of the world feels somehow, you can transcend space and time and feel exactly what they're feeling. You can communicate with that being because you've established a harmonic resonance between the two of you that allows for a return back to source, which on a quantum physical level, it's like every source point, every center point of every single individuated atom, subatomic particle, every single body, every single consciousness form exists within the same morphogenetic field. That's where the illusion of separation goes away. That's where you can instantaneously communicate. That's where you can jump space-time. That's where you can travel. That's when you can demanifest, when you return to that source point. Now the true return to that source point is when you can physically, every single cell of your body can just breathe it back to that source point. But we can keep practicing with first mental body layers, then emotional body layers, then physical body layers.